Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me for this flip through of my new coloring book, Dark Garden. I know some of you have been patiently awaiting this. Thank you so much for being with me throughout the creation process of this book. I had a lot of fun illustrating all of the girls and all of the plants in here. For those of you who are unaware of what this is my second coloring book, my first coloring book being Spooky Sweets, which is still available via my Etsy shop and my Amazon if you're interested in picking that up. While my first book was inspired by desserts and candy and sweets, this book is inspired by botanicals, specifically those that are toxic, deadly, or those that have occult connotations, I suppose. I mean, not necessarily occult, but just oddities. Let's call them plant oddities, shall we? While my first coloring book was an adult coloring book as well, it was more or less made to look a bit more like a children's coloring book, and this one is as well, but this one is a little bit more detailed than my previous. I still wanted to keep with that children's coloring book kind of a theme, so it's still a little bit on the kiddie side, but it's definitely not as simple. This one's definitely a little bit more detailed, and it's probably not as fun for kids, so I wouldn't assume that most kids would want to color in this one, but you never know. You never know. So let's go ahead and get on right to it. This is the cover, and this is the back cover here. If you remember my Spooky Sweets coloring book, I have a very distinct style when it comes to coloring in my covers. I'm not interested in the perfectly rendered covers that you see permeating the coloring book market. I tend to kind of infuse a little bit of my personality into the cover. You can see some people are going to hate it, other people are going to love it, other people are going to be indifferent to it. It's not a conventional way of coloring, but this is how I like to color, both in person and with physical materials as well as digitally, because this is of course colored digitally. The colors are even a little bit duller, so these aren't immediately going to grab your attention, which is fine. I'm not out there to grab attention and take your money. What I want to do is bring you into my world, and hopefully you enjoy it enough that you would be interested in purchasing my book. So let's get on to it. Ooh, cracking the spine. That always feels so dirty, doesn't it? With coloring books and with normal books. I just look at, ooh, crack the spine, but that's okay. And this is my cover page. This is Datura, the girl here. She's holding Datura plants if you're curious. Okay, so here's our cover girl. Again, she's holding Datura plants. I love her. She's definitely one of my favorite pieces throughout the book. This piece is, of course, inspired by corpse plant. If you're unaware what a corpse plant is, it is a plant that reeks of rotting meat. Delicious, isn't it? I will have an index in the back of the book, by the way, for those of you who are wondering what these plants are. But for the purposes of this walkthrough, I'm just going to go ahead and just mention the colloquial names of these plants. So this is a corpse plant, and what you're going to find throughout my book is that the girls that I have illustrated to correspond with the plants take their fashion inspiration from the plants. So in this case, she kind of has that tall, corpse planty looking hair and texture. A little bit more of an avant-garde hairstyle, which is what I like. This is the Nightshade. This is Nightshade, and here she is posing before a tombstone. If you couldn't make that out, that's a tombstone. She's got a little skull in her hair because she's a poisonous, wicked woman. Throughout the book, I've included a few pages that don't have female figures in them. For those of you who may not be interested in coloring a girl, you want to just color pretty poisonous stuff. In this instance, there's some skulls, some fungus here. These fungus are called devil's tooth. They're not poisonous, but they look awful. If you look them up, they're hideous looking fungi. Ugh, but they're cool looking. They are cool. They look as though they're bleeding. It's disgusting. But we've got some fungus, we've got some hemlock, and some more nightshade, poison bottles, etc. This girl was inspired by black calla lilies. They're also called Odessa lilies. These are calla lilies that are black. They're black or a very deep burgundy-ish, purplish color. Beautiful plants. This is daffodil. I had no idea that daffodil were toxic prior to my creating this book. But you live and you learn. I've learned a lot about plants throughout the creation process of this book. This girl is, of course, if you couldn't gather, inspired by a variety of pitcher plants. I attempted to keep pitcher plants alive at one point and I failed miserably. I'm just the worst when it comes to plants. I have the biggest black thumb on earth, so I've given up on it. I even kill cactus. I've been getting better, but I digress. This page features some more potion bottles, skulls, again, mushrooms, doll's eye, which is a super, super toxic plant. This one right here, and it's aptly called doll's eye because it does look like a doll's eyeball. And this is foxglove. Datura, again. Datura is also known as devil's trumpet or devil's weed. Very toxic, very beautiful, smells amazing. This girl was inspired by mushrooms. They're called fly amanita. They're just a toadstool. These aren't necessarily toxic, but I thought they had a really good shape, and I did want to include a lot of strange looking plants in my book. So again, not everything in here is deadly. They just look like it. We kind of have the same hairstyle. Gotta put that out there. I love the bob hairstyle. Hey to everybody with the bob hairstyle. This little one is Angel's Trumpet, which you would think would be the complete antithesis to a Devil's Trumpet, but in reality, Angel's Trumpet is equally as toxic. These smell absolutely divine. If you've never been around an Angel's Trumpet tree, smells so good. I absolutely love them. So I had to include them, not only because they're beautiful, but they are poisonous. And I love that. I love that. This girl is Leather Flower. Not much to say. If I remember correctly, that's not a poisonous plant either. It just gives you like a serious case of the runs if you ingest it. So don't go ingesting leather flowers, guys. It's not a good idea. Of course, everybody loves a Venus flytrap. We all know about them. They are amazing, fabulous, and another plant that I cannot for the life of me keep alive. Fungi, fungi, fungi. Not all of these are toxic. Again, just they look like they'd be aptly used for poisons. A couple of them are. There's some psilocybin in here, which, I mean, isn't toxic necessarily, but has hallucinogenic effects. And we've got various toadstools in here. And this one right here is called a turkey tail. I love these. These look really cool. I don't believe that these are toxic either, but they have a really good look to them. And the inspiration behind this page was that whole idea that mushrooms may look innocent, but they'll kill you. So there's some edible mushrooms in here as well as some toxic mushrooms. So don't go out into the forest picking mushrooms, you guys. You could die, and I would hate for that to happen. This page. I love this page. This is I think my second favorite page aside from the Datura. This is the psilocybin girl. Psilocybin, if you're unaware of what that is magic mushrooms, which are the psychedelic mushrooms. I'm very prudish when it comes to intoxicating substances. I don't even ingest alcohol all that much either. Never tried it, don't know what it's like. I have poured over lots of documentaries and short clips of 50s and 60s housewives being given LSD and drugs like that, and I think that the effect that these people are experiencing is super fascinating, which is what led me to illustrate this girl, because you can see all the swirling shapes, and I'm just envisioning the colors that these people are seeing when they're on magic mushrooms. If I wasn't so paranoid about toxins and an extended high, I will admit I would be interested in trying them, but something about having an hours-long bad trip is no bueno, so I'm staying clear of that, and I'll just read about it and admire it. I love her. I know that a lot of you guys are going to go super crazy with this page with the colors, and I'm really excited to see what you come up with. I can't wait to color this one myself. Next, from something very happy and colorful, we're moving straight on into something horrible and deadly. These are the doll's eye plants, which were new to me. I'd never heard of the doll's eye before prior to illustrating this book. And what doll's eye is it basically looks like a little holly berry, but it'll kill you. It'll kill you. They're white little plants, and they are really creepy. They look like doll's eyes on twigs. They're yucky looking, which is why I love them, and which is why I had to put them in the book. And if you can take a look here, I won't zoom in, but let me see if I can. If you take a look at one of her eyeballs, I gave her kind of the same eyeball or the same look of the plant here. Horrible little plants. Horrible. Next is not a deadly plant. This is the corpse flower. Similar to the corpse plant, this flower emits an odor that is very reminiscent of rotting meat. They say it smells like death, but each time I've actually been around a corpse plant, or carrion flower they're also called, they tend to just smell like rotting garbage to me, almost like rotting vegetation. They don't smell like death necessarily to me, but maybe my nose is calibrated strangely, because I'll admit the smell of skunk does not freak me out. I think it just smells like rubber, and quite frankly, I don't think it smells bad. I'm horrible. Ew, I know. I also enjoy the scent of acetone, so that I love chemical smells. I'm disgusting, so meh. Corpse flower, who knows if it actually smells like a corpse. But this plant is huge. It's supposed to be one of the largest, if not the largest, corpse flower in the world. And they are native to Indonesia. They're beautiful. So given that they're so large, I envisioned a big beautiful dress and a headpiece made out of these flowers. And since I mentioned I don't necessarily think they smell, well, I've never smelled this particular plant, but I wouldn't mind walking around in one of these dresses. So if anybody has access to these plants in their garden, which I know is an impossibility, but let me daydream, let's have a photo shoot. Let's have a photo shoot. I am 1000% up for that. Next is the opium poppy. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs, guys, but opium is a very romantic narcotic. I am obsessed with the Jazz Age, and of course, Jazz Age, opium, hello, they go hand in hand. I also live in California, and of course, the California poppy is our state flower, and they're beautiful, and they're also toxic. Well, not all varieties, I think, but at any rate, these are opium poppies, and here's my little opium girl. She may or may not be high on opium. I'll never tell. I'm no snitch, but that is what inspired this page. Moving on, more objects. These are carnivorous plants. These are more corpse flowers, skulls, and all of that good stuff. So not toxic, but they are deadly to insects. So that counts. This wicked female is monkshood, which is also known as wolfsbane. I wanted to give her kind of a menacing type look, so I extended her cat eyes a little bit, and she's, you know, very tall, kind of like the wolfsbane. Horrible plant as well, very toxic. Next is not a toxic girl. She's got roses and marigolds around her, and she's surrounded by skulls, which this was more a Day of the Dead themed page. So not necessarily deadly, but she is representing death. And the flowers that are, of course, associated with Day of the Dead are roses and primarily marigolds. And there's a couple of tombstones there, which should give you the indication that, yes, she is in a cemetery. Hello, Day of the Dead cemetery. More Day of the Dead goodness. This is a decorated skull, kind of illustrated to look like a sugar skull in a way, surrounded by a couple of corpse plants, or a corpse flower, poppies, roses, and some mushrooms. I like this one. I think this is a very cute standalone page. Looking forward to coloring this one in as well. Next is wisteria. I think wisteria plants look so beautiful. If you don't know what a wisteria plant is, there are these purple flowers that drape down, almost like a weeping willow, but imagine a weeping willow, but in a very soft lilac lavender color. That's what wisteria plants look like. And again, not deadly. At least I don't believe that they're deadly if I remember correctly, but they are toxic if you ingest them to a degree. I just like the look of them. So they're beautiful, but just a little bit dangerous, which is an ongoing theme throughout the book. Roses, skulls. You can't go wrong with roses and skulls. If you need a little bit of break from all the death and destruction of the previous pages, here you go. Although I guess the skulls do represent death a little bit, so ignore that last statement. And my final page is Little Miss Avant-Garde High Fashion with the black lipstick and that annoyed expression with her little pose. This is my representation of Hemlock. Hemlock is disgustingly, deadly, toxic, so naturally she had to be in the book. I love her. I have a vision for how I want to color this page. Don't know if it's going to work out just yet, but anyhow, she's closing out the book. This is a tester page that I included so that you can obviously test out your colors. I have used a variety of materials in this, or in my previous coloring book. I've used crayons, I've used pen, I've used watercolor. So go ahead and feel free to get crazy with this. I will be filming coloring videos with this book, so stay tuned for those. This is a botanical index, so this is every single plant that is represented in the book. I wanted to keep the book clean of any page numbers, so I know that this is going to annoy some of you because although the plants are all numbered here, they're not actually numbered in the book. But come on, it's easy. Just count backwards, count forwards, and you can figure it out. I've included their colloquial names as well as their scientific names and classifications for those of you who are being sticklers about coloring them in the way that they're supposed to look in real life. You can go ahead and reference this on the computer and you can color them accordingly. I would recommend that you maybe get a little crazy too. You don't necessarily have to follow all of the correct colors, if you will. I sure as hell am not going to follow the correct colors, but you know, think outside the box a little bit. I encourage it. My little about me blurb, and that is it. Here's the back page. Don't be afraid to color outside the lines. I always tell you about that. It's good for you. I promise. Get a little bit crazy. The cover of the book is also a little bit of a play on that. I'm hoping to keep this under 20 minutes, and this is at 18 something just about. So thank you for joining me on this. I really hope you guys are looking forward to getting your copies and making a mess with me. Share your colored pages with me. I love to see them. And as usual, join me on all of my social media channels. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I will have links at the end of this video as well as down below on where you can purchase Spooky Sweets, which is my first book. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot express how grateful I am that you're here listening to me blabber on. I'll see you again very soon.